The Beneteau Oceanis 34.1 is one of those boats that sounds perfectly normal, until you look at the rig and realize that something fairly important is missing. 35 feet overall, twin wheels, open transom, modern Beneteau cockpit, bright interior, easy sail handling, very civilized. And then you look up. There's no backstay. On a Beneteau Oceanis. That's a shocking little sentence. This is not some twitchy carbon fiber lake weapon sailed by people who own 3 pairs of gloves and speak only in polar diagrams. This is a production cruising boat for normal people to buy. It's meant for couples and families and weekends, coastal cruising, and the occasional dockside argument about which locker the sunscreen is in. And yet here it is, with no backstay. Twin rudders, hard chines, a modern fractional rig, 3 keel options, including one that drops down to 8 feet 4 inches, which is a fairly deranged thing to say about a 34-foot cruiser. So today we're looking at the Oceanis 34.1 that I saw in Annapolis, and the question is simple. Is this just another pleasant white production cruiser, or has Beneteau accidentally built a small liveaboard style boat that sails like a stabbed rat? For anyone not raised on suspicious British metaphors, that means quick. The Oceanis 341 replaced the older Oceanis 35-1, but it's not the same boat with sharper sunglasses. This is a Mark Lombard design with a modern hull shape, fuller bow, a broad stern, hard chines carried aft, twin rudders, and a rig that's trying very hard not to be boring. Length overall is 35 foot 4, hull length is 32 foot 8, beam 11 foot 9, light displacement listed at 12,050 pounds, fuel's 34 gallons, water capacity is listed at 61 depending on configuration. Standard power is a 21 horse Yanmar diesel with the larger option available. So no, this is not a giant boat. It's not pretending to be a 45 footer. It's still a 34 foot family cruiser that normal people might be able to afford. But the way Beneteau has used this space makes it feel bigger than the numbers suggest. You see that immediately in the cockpit. Twin wheels on a boat this size used to feel a bit ridiculous. 20 years ago, twin helms on a 34-footer would have looked like installing 2 steering wheels in your hatchback because you might someday want to parallel park it from the glove box. But here, they make sense. The stern is wide, the cockpit's open, the transom drops down. You could walk through the boat without climbing over one big wheel in the middle. The helm seats fold away. The swim platform makes boarding easier. And from either wheel, visibility forward is good because you're standing outboard instead of peering around a cabin top like a meerkat with boat shoes. That cockpit is a huge part of this boat's appeal. It's not just where you steer, it's where you eat and swim and lounge, entertain, and quietly wonder how much the optional cockpit table costs. But the more interesting part of the 34.1 is what happens when you stop treating it like a floating patio and actually sail the thing. Let's go back to that missing backstay. On older cruising boats, a backstay feels almost mandatory. It supports the mast from aft, helps control forestay tension, and gives sailors one more piece of gear to adjust, inspect, and emotionally bond with. The Oceanis 341 does without it, like an old squishy hunter or a Hobie cat. Instead, it uses a fractional rig with swept back spreaders. The shrouds are angled aft so they help support the mast both sideways and from behind. This is not Beneteau forgetting to put a wire and hoping nobody notices until Florida. It's a deliberate modern rig choice. The benefits are obvious. The cockpit and transom open up beautifully. The mainsail can carry more roach because there's no backstay waiting for it like a clothesline of disappointment. The boat looks cleaner like this. It feels more open. It gives the designers more freedom in the sail plan, but it is different. You don't have a backstay adjuster to play with. Rig tuning matters. Chain plate loads matter. Spreader geometry matters. Mast compression matters. The whole system has to be engineered and maintained properly. And don't think too hard on running the main out at 90 degrees on the downwind. No. But we don't really do that on new boats anyway, do we? No, we run a code 0 and a torque rope and we call it a day. What a brave new world. Then we get the keels, and this is where the boat becomes even more interesting. There are 3 choices. The shallow draft draws 4 foot 11. That's the practical choice for places where the depth sounder is less of an instrument, more of a threat display. The deep draft keel draws 6'7". That is the one for sailors who want the boat to point and track and maneuver and behave like it's had a stern conversation with physics. And then there's a hydraulic lifting keel. That one goes from 4 foot 1 inch with the keel up to 8 foot 4 inches with it down. 8 foot 4 on a 34-footer. That's not a keel. That's a letter opener for Neptune. In theory, the lifting keel gives you the shallow water access of a shoal cruiser with the upwind grip of a much deeper performance boat. You can sneak into thinner anchorages. You can drop the foil when it's time to sail properly. But of course, this is boating, where no good idea arrives without a small invoice hiding behind it. A lifting keel adds hydraulics and structure and moving parts, inspection points, maintenance questions, and resale considerations. It's a fascinating option, but not automatically the most sensible thing to do. Now, calling the Oceanis 34-1 a liveaboard is where we need to be careful. This is not a traditional heavy displacement blue water apartment, and it's not a floating bunker either. It's not the boat you buy because you want to carry 900 cans of beans and a spare gearbox and enough chain to moor the moon. But as a coastal cruiser for a couple, or a boat someone could spend serious time aboard, it starts to make a lot of sense. The interior is bright and open and modern. The saloon has useful seating. The galley's workable. The head is practical. The sleeping spaces make the boat usable for weekends, vacations, or extended coastal cruising. It feels less like an old fiberglass cave and more like a small waterfront apartment that happens to lean over occasionally. That matters because a lot of modern buyers are not preparing for Cape Horn. They're weekending, cruising the Great Lakes, sailing the Chesapeake, hopping along the coast and spending summers aboard, or working from the marina between trips. They want a boat that can actually be enjoyed by living on it, not a heroic full-keel damp cupboard with a compass. This is where this 34.1's two personalities start to overlap. A lot of comfortable cruisers sail like wet cardboard. They look good at the dock, they win boat show awards, and then under sail they sort of slump over sideways. The 34.1 seems to avoid that trap. The hull is fairly light for the volume it offers. The beam is carried aft. The chines add form stability. The twin rudders keep grip when the boat heels. And with the right sail package, this is not a floating condo with a mast installed for decoration. This thing actually moves. Reviewers have reported strong speeds for the size, especially reaching. In decent breeze, the boat can push up into the 7 knots and even 8 knot range. This is where modern 34-footers start to feel alive, not terrifying, not raceboat nonsense, just quick enough that sailing remains the main event when you're on this boat. But the version of the boat you get matters. The base setup with a self-tacking jib is easy, which is excellent for couples or new owners. Tacking becomes almost suspiciously simple. But if you want the lively version, you need to pay attention to the sail plan. The larger Jenny, bowsprit, Co-Zero, ASIM spinnaker setup, and performance-oriented rigging all change this boat's personality dramatically. That is especially true in light air areas. A self-tacking jib is convenient, but a Co-Zero can be the difference between drifting politely and actually going somewhere. So don't only ask, is the 34.1 fast? Ask which 34.1, which keel, which rig, which sails, which engine, which options. A shoal draft boat with the simple sail plan is not the same animal as the deep keel boat with the extra horsepower forward of the mast. Construction is modern production Beneteau on these. The hull uses a fiberglass structure with an internal grid. The deck is cored, so bedding and hardware maintenance matter. Stanchions, winches, clutches, hatches, chain plates, deck fittings, and anything that pierces the deck should be interrogated like it stole your socks. The keel is cast iron, so coating condition matters. The twin rudders improve control under sail, but also add steering gear and bearings and alignment points and different feel under power compared to an older single rudder boat. None of that makes this boat bad, it just makes it a boat. And boats, as we know, are basically floating maintenance exams with cushions. Price is the other major part of this story. Early base pricing was under $200,000, but real boats with real options are commonly much higher. Current listings tend to sit in the mid-200s to even low 300s depending on the year, the keel, engine, electronics, canvas, commissioning, and equipment. And once a 34-foot boat starts flirting with $300,000, buyers naturally begin looking sideways at older 40-footers, older blue water boats, performance cruisers, and every other fiberglass temptation within 500 miles. So the value question is not, is this the cheapest way to go cruising? It's not. The question is whether you want a newer, easier, brighter, dealer-supported cruiser that a couple can manage without turning every dock line into a family emergency that still manages to sail like it's on fire. And speaking of going fast, have you ever been ripping along and suddenly one of your seat cushions does a man overboard drill? Check out this article, Choosing and Securing Seat Cushions. From closed cell foam to Fastex buckles and DIY Dyneema pad eyes, here's how to keep cockpit cushions secure and dry. Excellent read today. I'll leave a link in the description for you. While you're here, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps us out, but also it lets YouTube know that you like sailboat videos, so it'll show you more of them. How cool is that? And hit subscribe so I can see you again next time.